Okay, so you ready to jump into another deep dive with me today?
Always ready. Always ready to dive deep.
All right, perfect. Well, this time we're going to take on some Spanish grammar.
Yeah.
And this is a listener question. Let me just say this is a great question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it really got me thinking too, and it's something I knew the answer to, but I was like,
Ooh.
yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
Right.
Let me think about this for a second.
Sure.
So, let's get right into it.
Okay.
This is all about del
Oh.
and ow, the tricky little contractions.
Right.
But we're looking at them in a really specific context, and this is what made me pause and think for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at them before a subject.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, kind of strange.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You don't see that every day. That's for sure.
You don't see that every day.
Yeah.
So, you're going through your Spanish textbook, you're learning grammar, and then you come across this,
Yeah.
and you're like, wait, what's going on here?
Right.
So,
That's a great observation. I mean, it really highlights how much of language learning goes beyond those textbook rules.
right.
And you can learn all the conjugations and sentence structures, but then you encounter something like this, and it's like, whoa, there's a whole other layer to this.
It's like the Spanish Matrix.
Exactly.
Like there's a whole...
There's levels to this.
There's levels.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad the listener brought this up.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think this is going to help a lot of people kind of make that next step in their learning. And even for more advanced speakers.
Right.
To just really start to understand.
Nuance.
Nuance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start by breaking down what del and ow are all about, shall we?
Yeah, let's break it down.
Okay, so at their very core, these are contractions.
Right.
Del being de plus L,
Right.
which means of the.
Of the.
And then you've got ow, which is A plus L, meaning to.
Uh-huh.
So they're like these handy little shortcuts.
That just roll off the tongue in Spanish.
Right.
Now, the listener's question specifically points out something you wouldn't typically find in a textbook. Using del and al right before the subject of a sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, in our Spanish classes, we learn these contractions usually chill out, like after a verb
Right, after we're
or a preposition.
Uh-huh.
So is it even grammatically correct to put them before the subject? I mean, is this like breaking some sacred Spanish law?
Okay, so in formal, super proper Spanish, you're right. You wouldn't typically structure a sentence like that. But here's the thing about language, right? It's not always about following strict, rigid rules.
Right.
Think about how we talk in English with our friends.
Totally.
We use slang, we use shortcuts, we say things that would probably make our English teachers cringe.
Yeah, like audi.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, ending sentences with prepositions,
Totally.
which I know is technically not supposed to be done.
Yeah, it's one of those things, but it's how people actually talk.
That's how we talk.
Yeah.
That's how we talk, right?
Exactly. So it's the same idea in Spanish.
Got it.
There are times when it's totally okay to bend the rules a little bit.
I like that.
Yeah.
Bend the rules.
Gotta be flexible with language.
You got to be flexible.
Because it's a living thing, it's constantly evolving.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that...
So,
Go ahead.
so in certain dialects,
Uh-huh.
or, just casual conversations,
Well-
you might hear things like,
Okay, give us an example.
all right, so how about this? Del metro, no hay quien lo aguante hoy.
Oh.
Which literally translated means the metro, no one can stand it today.
Okay, so the del metro, is the metro, and then it's the subject, like you were saying.
Exactly.
No one can stand it today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it's a way of adding emphasis
Oh, I see.
or sounding more natural
Okay.
in everyday speech.
Okay, so it's like,
Yeah.
instead of saying like, oh, the metro's so crowded today.
You're like, del metro. Awful.
Del metro. Forget about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, it's like, you're putting the emphasis right up front.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Right?
So it's not just about del and all then. It's about...
It's about how the whole language sort of shifts depending on who you're talking to, where you are.
where you are, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you wouldn't say that in a business meeting or...
No, probably not.
Yeah.
But, hanging out with friends, grabbing some tapas,
Yeah,
that's where it's going to come out.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners?
Okay, so big takeaway. While del and al, before a subject, they're not the standard in formal Spanish, absolutely.
Right.
But they're super common in informal speech, in regional dialects.
Right.
It's like a secret handshake
Oh, yeah.
for native speakers.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's like, you're in the club.
You're in the club. And for those of us learning Spanish, it's like, okay, pay attention to
Yeah,
these little things.
exactly. It's all about those subtle differences.
Right.
Because they unlock a whole new level.
Absolutely.
stay on
Like
it.
cracking the code almost.
It is. It is. Because the more you understand how a language is actually used, right? The better you're going to be able to communicate.
Right.
To connect with people.
And actually sound like you know what you're talking about.
That's exactly what it's all about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So are these informal uses?
Ooh, good question.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
Or are they simply a sign that the Spanish language is just evolving? I'll leave that for you guys to think about.
That's a good one to ponder.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Hasta luego.
Adios.